Well, welcome everybody. I'm David Evans. I'm Cell Biology Secretary of the Society, and it gives me very great pleasure to introduce to you the first of the talks in the session that's headed In-Depth Academy, and I'll explain a little bit more in a moment about the In-Depth Academy for the conference today. The In-Depth Cost Action started in 2017. And In-Depth is an abbreviation for the impact of nuclear domains on gene expressions and plant traits. As I said, it started in August 2017, and it's coming close now to its final few months where it will be ending. And we're working together to create a legacy, a future for all of the actions that have taken place through In-Depth, creating collaborations, undertaking training for early career scientists, sharing techniques and expertise, preparing and running masterclasses, and of course through publications and talks and posters of the kind that we'll have at the conference today. Part of that legacy has been the creation of the In-Depth Academy, a collection of resources for the community made available widely, studying plant chromatin, nuclear structure, implications for crop science, and so on. So the SEB are very pleased today to be hosting the formal launch of the In-Depth Academy with a series of talks and posters. And the first one today is to be given by one of the key leaders and initiators of the cost action, Professor Christophe Tatou from GRED in Clermont-Ferrand, France. His talk, The Evolutionary Conserved Peptide Motifs Drive Attachment of the Plant Nuclear Skeleton at the Nuclear Pores. And that's going to be followed by the second talk in this session by Kentura Tamura, and we'll be introducing that in a little while. And that will be followed by a poster session as well, which I hope everybody will go along to and join in with. As a reminder, the participants in the conference can ask questions. And to do that, I ask you to click on the Live Now button on the left-hand side of your screen, where you will see a header, the title and its short introduction, and then below that, a box that says questions. That's the ideal place for you to put your questions, and we'll try and collate those and ask as many as we're able to at the close of the talk, depending on time, obviously. And if not, we can pick them up later on and respond to you. There is a second option, which is to use the chat button under messages, but if possible, we prefer you to be using the questions button under Live Now. Before I hand over to Christophe, one more thing to be said, and that is that you will see on your screen a small icon with 4 outward pointing arrows on it. And if you click on that icon, and usually it will be where the presentation is taking place, you can expand that presentation to be full screen, but you will need to do that for yourself. I don't think when the presenter puts it full screen, it will do it for everybody in the meeting. So I think you will need to do that yourself. So without further ado and taking up any more time, let me hand over to Christophe to present his lecture this morning. Christophe.
So thank you, David, for this short and nice introduction about the In-Depth Academy. So today I'm very pleased to present our recent work on CACU4 and the nucleoskeleton. Okay. So as you may know, we are working and we are using Arabidopsis thaliana as a model species. And we are investigating how chromatin is organized in the 3D nucleus and how this organization can impact gene expression. And so we are especially interested in the nuclear periphery, and we started a few years ago to investigate the link complex and over nuclear envelope associated protein. And recently we moved to the study of nucleoskeleton. So the nucleoskeleton is made in plants of CACU4 and CRAN, and in the few next slides I will present you these 2 proteins. So CRAN are encoded by a small gene family, and the protein contains some long coil domain, as in animal lamins. So CRAN mutants also have a strong effect on plant development, especially when CRAN1 is involved. And it has also an effect on nuclear morphology, especially with nuclei becoming smaller and more spherical. So one striking feature of CRAN protein is that they nicely localize at the nuclear periphery, while they do not contain any transmembrane domain. And yeast-2 hybrids have shown that these protein can interact together, and this means probably suggests that they may form some complexes at the nuclear periphery. And very recently, Kiyoshi Masuda has shown using orthologs of CRAN protein called NMCP that these proteins are able to form filaments in vitro, and he also observed these filaments using super resolution microscopy, so in planta. So about CACU4, CACU4 is a more, let's say, mysterious protein because it does not contain any domain, but contain an NLS and at its C-terminal N region, which is enriched in glycine and arginine repeat. So as the CRAN, it localizes at the nuclear periphery and do not contain any transmembrane domain. And yeast-2 hybrid and GFP trap assay have shown that CACU4 is able to interact with CRAN1 and CRAN4. So as a CRAN, CACU4 is able to affect the nuclear morphology with nuclei becoming more spherical. And the mutant has not so much effect than the CRAN protein, but affects seed production. So at the beginning of this story, we addressed a very simple question. It's how the nucleoskeleton is physically linked to the nuclear periphery, while CRAN and CACU4 do not contain any transmembrane domain. So we thought that CACU4 may be a good entry point for this study because CACU4 is a single copy gene. It localizes at the nuclear periphery where it interacts with CRAN, and it is also a protein affecting the nuclear morphology, but with not so much effect on plant development. So first, we started to investigate which part of CACU4 would be needed for its localization at the nuclear periphery. For that purpose, we just made some deletion derivative of CACU4 and tested the function in yeast-2 hybrid and in transient assay in tobacco. So in yeast-2 hybrid, we were able to show that the N-terminal part of CACU4 is interacting with itself, and that this N-terminal part is also able to interact with the CRAN proteins. And also, it nicely localized CACU4 at the nuclear periphery. So then we try to investigate what would be the property of this N-terminal part, investigating if there is any domain, protein domain, but we failed. And then we moved to a MEM analysis, which is a software to find small motifs. And we identified two different small motifs that we called M1 and M2. These small motifs are about 30 amino acid long, and they were predicted to fold into alpha helices using the PepFold3 software. And these alpha helices are often involved in protein-protein interaction. So then we addressed the function of these two motifs, and we followed two strategies. First, we expressed only the small peptide, or we did some deletion analysis, and then tested these constructs in yeast-2 hybrid and transient assay. So in yeast-2 hybrid, we were able to show that the M1 motif is important for the interaction of CACU4 with itself, and the M2 motif is needed for its interaction with a CRAN protein. But none of these two motifs, or even the combination of the two motifs, target the GFP at the nuclear periphery. So then we try to investigate if these two motifs were conserved in other protein, and so we did a simple BLAST-P analysis, but also used the FIMO analysis from the MEM suite, and we found indeed two proteins having the same conserved motif, and these are two nucleoporins. So these two nucleoporins are from the nuclear basket. So the nuclear basket is a structure made of filaments, which is inside the nucleus, close to the nucleoskeleton and to the chromatin. So then we perform a new MEM analysis, but this time using the three gene families. And indeed, we confirm the occurrence of the two peptide motifs and found a new one that we call M3, which is upstream of each others. So this prompted us to test if M3 was able to target the GFP at the nuclear periphery. It did not, but in combination with M1 and M2, it nicely enriched the GFP at the nuclear periphery. So then we ask a question about the function of these motifs in the two nucleoporins. And first, so we followed the same strategy using small peptides or deletion derivative. We also tested in yeast the interaction. They were quite weak, but we were able to identify interaction between the two NUPs using BFC experiment in tobacco, and between the two NUPs and CACU4. We also discovered that one of the NUP, NUP82, was able to interact with CROWN2, at least in this BFC assay. Then, using the yeast-2 hybrid experiment, we were able to show that the deletion of the small motif impaired the interaction with the CROWN protein. So, probably meaning that the interaction between the nucleoskeleton, the nuclear pore complex component and the nucleoskeleton might be mediated by these two short motifs. So at this point, I should come back on the definition of protein domain and the protein motif. So the protein domain are a well-defined 3D structure that can unfold spontaneously in a protein, while the motifs do not. But the motif can undergo a disorder to order transition upon protein-protein interaction. So we, for this reason, we tested the level, the proportion of disorder in our three proteins. So sorry, the name is not indicated, but CACU4, NUP82, and NUP136. And we found that the proportion of disorder is very high in our three protein, except at the protein motif in the three protein. So meaning that maybe these small motifs are needed for the initial step of interaction during protein-protein interaction. Then we move to a larger set of protein, so this to predict the proportion of disorder. And these proteins are coming from the nuclear pore complex, from the nucleoskeleton, and from the nuclear envelope. And as you can see in this figure, the protein from the nucleoskeleton and from the nuclear pore basket have a high proportion of disorders. So this could suggest that it is a common feature needed to, for this protein to ensure their function, such as, for instance, the formation of filaments at the nuclear periphery. So then, because of this structural similarity, we looked for the phylogenetic relationship between our three protein family. And so for that, we collected a set of plant species representing the green lineage, and for which the genome is fully sequenced. So as you can see, NUP136 appeared in a basal land plant, so earlier than the two others. and probably that the two others appeared from a duplication event, probably during the emergence of the early angiosperm. If we look at the phylogenetic tree, classifies the three gene family in three clades really nicely. And this argues again in favor of gene duplication. So probably, so this means also that CACU4 probably diverged from an old nucleoporine and became now a component of a nucleoskeleton. So to sum up, so we have discovered three peptide motifs. And these motifs are conserved in two knobs. These motifs are important for the localization of CACU4 at the nuclear periphery, but also to its interaction with the crown protein. So it suggests that there is a kind of continuum between the nuclear pore complex and the nucleoskeleton, and at the moment we are currently investigating the meaning of this continuum. So we may suggest two possible functions. One would be to regulate the distribution of a pore complex at the nuclear periphery, or the second one, but it's not exclusive, could be a function to anchor the nucleoskeleton to the nuclear periphery. So many experiments are ongoing, and if you want to learn more about that, you can attend to the seminar of Sarah Mermet, who will present our poster in the virtual session this afternoon. And finally, I just would like to thank the team members, so Sarah, Emmanuel, and Sylvie, who did most of the wet lab experiment, and Maxime, who initiated this story, Tristan, who did the bioinformatic work, of course, our three collaborators, Kentaro Tamura, Pierre Tuferi, and Celia Barou, and all our sponsors, and a special thank to InDepth. So that's it.
Thank you, Christophe. Thank you very much indeed. That's a really excellent introduction to the session, and great short presentation that gave so much information on how things have moved forward. There was one question I put in the chat, which you answered before I'd even finished typing it, which was really the question around the connection of the motifs and the nuclear skeleton, Plamina or whatever. Now, I think from some earlier work, we know that nuclear pores are probably actively positioned in developing cells and that they are in kind of controlled arrays. And I just wonder if you've got any speculation, or maybe your answer is just go and look at Sarah Mermet's poster, but about how that might be functioning and what that might mean in practice.
Yeah, I think we favor the hypothesis of maybe a function in the nuclear pore distribution, because we also know that the nucleoskeleton is connected also with the SON protein at the nuclear periphery. So there is for sure not only one way to anchor the nucleoskeleton to the nuclear periphery. So.
Yes, a lot to look forward to, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, indeed.